When we talk about early Islamic conquests, we generally talk about the geographical expansion by the Arabs. However, the Islamic conquest was twofold. First was the military conquest of a geographical region, and second was the Islamization of the general populace through subjugation and conversion. Only after the completion of these two steps, the said geographical region could be termed as conquered fully by the forces of Islam. Keeping this in mind, let us discuss the Arabic invasions into the Indian subcontinent and see if they achieved their objectives. From the year 632 onwards, Islam expanded outwards from the Arabian peninsula. Towards the west the expansion was rapid, and Levant, Egypt and the island of Cyprus were all annexed by 655 during the Rashidun Caliphate. By the end of second decade of the 8th century, the Islamic Empire of the Umayyad Caliphate had captured northern Africa till Morocco and also much of the Iberian Peninsula. The Arab armies had been equally successful elsewhere and by 705 had made inroads into the Caucasus. The eastward expansion had been equally rapid and successful. Sasanian Empire, which comprised of much of the modern-day Iraq and Iran, fell completely into Arab hands by 643. Khorasan was annexed in 647, and Transoxiana in 650. By 715, Khwarezm, Samarkand, Bukhara and Fergana had also been annexed. The Arabs had long-standing commercial relations with India and were aware of its wealth and prosperity. And with so much military success early on, it was only natural for them to eventually invade India as well. They also saw an opportunity to spread Islam in the Indian subcontinent, which was predominantly Hindu at that time. The territories that were at the frontier of India were Kabul, Zabul and Sindh. Kabul and Zabul were river valleys surrounded and protected by high mountains. Conquering both would have opened up the Khyber Pass into India. For getting into Sindh, the Arabs had two options, through the Mukran coast, as well as through the Bolan Pass. Hence, they tried all of these routes numerous times to get into the much coveted lands of India. In fact, before any land invasion into India, they had sent 3 expeditions by sea. First one was to Tana, near modern-day Mumbai in 637, and the other 2 were aimed at Broch and Dabul. But these were easily repelled and thus ended in failures for the Arabs. Thus first Arab invasion into Sindh was the aforementioned naval attack on Dabul in 643, which was an absolute failure for the Arabs. For the next 2 decades, Arabs did not send any further expeditions to Sindh on the perception of it being a state too powerful, which was really the case, as Sindh at the time was ruled by a powerful Brahmin king named Chak, who had consolidated his rule and expanded his territory. In 660, a great expedition was sent by the Arabs through Bolan Pass into Kikian, but it met a fierce resistance by the native Jats and was completely routed. As was the case with the 6 further expeditions which were sent through this route until 680, and Arabs could only capture Makran. This enabled almost 3 decades of no further Arab interference in Sindh until 708, when 2 successive expeditions were sent, taking advantage of the weakened state of Sindh due to a long civil war, but both of these expeditions failed as well. Chach's son Dahir had by then ascended the throne of Sindh. Seeing his 2 armies defeated and massacred, Al-Hajjaj, the then governor of Iraq, made elaborate plans and sent his nephew and son-in-law, Muhammad ibn Qasim, with a large army in 712. Qasim first attacked Dabul and captured it after a siege, then he marched on to further victories and slaughtered the general population of the conquered cities. Suffering much loss of territory and numerous betrayals, Dahir met the Arabs in battle in which he was defeated and killed. Arabs overcame stiff resistance and captured territory till Multan during the next year, and with that established a foothold on the Indian soil. But after the death of Hajjaj, Qasim was called back, and Dahir's son Jasima recaptured much of the lost territory of Sindh and threw off the Muslim yoke. He was subsequently defeated and killed, and Sindh was recaptured by the Arabs in 724. With this, the Hindu rule in Sindh came to an end, but only after a century of struggle on the part of the Arabs and numerous failed invasions. Now, let us look into what transpired in Kabul and Zabul, or as they were known as back then, Kapisa and Jabal, respectively. The first Arab invasion into Zabul was from Sistan in 650, and it was swiftly defeated and the Muslim army was driven back. Few years later, Zabul was captured, but regained its freedom shortly thereafter. In 683, Arabs attempted a massive invasion of Zabul and Kabul. But they were badly defeated, their general was killed, they lost Sistan too and had to pay a huge bounty. In 685, Zabul again defeated the Arabs despite initial losses and the death of its king. In 692, it was the turn of Kabul to defeat the Arabs decisively by trapping the Arab army in the mountains and thus forcing them to sign a treaty. But the war against Kabul was renewed in 695 by Hajjaj. This time Kabul and Zabul joined forces and defeated the Arabs once again and blocked their retreat. A huge ransom was paid by the Arabs for passage after they lost many to hunger and despair. To avenge the utter humiliation, Hajjaj sent a larger army to march on Zabul in 699. They made some inroads, but after a disagreement with Hajjaj, the Arab army's general revolted and sought an alliance with the king of Zabul, who instead sent his head to Hajjaj. A treaty was then signed between Zabul and the Arabs, on conditions of cessation of war by the Arabs and payment of annual tribute from Zabul to them, which was honored exactly till Hajjaj's death in 714. Thus, Arab dominance was established barely and with great difficulty for a very brief time. After securing Sindh for a second time in 724, Arab forces made repeated attempts to further progress into India through Rajputana till 738. But they were decisively defeated by Pratiharas and Chalukyas, and their advance into central India was permanently stopped. Hence the Arabs became limited to Sindh, whereto their hold weakened over time. They had to contend with various rebellions by the Hindus for the next century and a half, which hindered them in consolidating their rule over Sindh. During the second half of the 8th century, Arabs invaded Zabul again but could only conquer Kandahar, and Zabul remained largely independent. Similarly, multiple expeditions were sent to subdue Kabul, but its independence also remained intact. In fact, Zabul and Kabul were only conquered in 870, by a Turk Yaqub ibn Layth, who was the founder of the Safarid dynasty, after they had defied the forces of the mighty caliphates for well over 2 centuries. Kabul soon gained its independence from the Muslim rule, and continued under the Hindu Shahis for 2 more centuries. Yaqub had also invaded and conquered Sindh in 872, and it remained a Safarid territory until their fall in 903. After this, the Arab power was confined to Mansoura in the lower and Multan in the upper Sindh valley. They had to contend with constant invasions by the Pratiharas into Multan and struggled with the Maids in Mansoura. Hence, it is quite clear that Arabs found it hard to establish any sort of military dominance in the frontier kingdoms of India, and even when they did manage to do so, these kingdoms regained much of their independence. But the real failure of the Arabs in India was their inability to convert most of the population to Islam as they had successfully done in other parts of the world, and this was definitely not for lack of trying on their part. In the Indian regions that they had managed to keep under their control, they tried to subjugate the local populations and forced them to convert, but without much success. This gives testament to the strength of the Hindu Dharmic faith and people's bravery for holding off the forces of Islam from accomplishing their twofold objective, for as long as they did. Therefore, the Arab invasions into India were unique, and can be mostly categorized as failure, owing to the might of the Indian kingdoms and the resilience of its people.